Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our public planning hearing for February 24th, 2025. Call this meeting to order at 5 o'clock, and I'll ask members of council if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Let me know if something does arise. This public meeting was called under Section 34 and Section 22 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, concerning 3 proposed zoning bylaw amendments to the Grey Highlands Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2004-50. Any person or public body is entitled to attend the public meeting and make written or oral submissions in support of or in opposition to any of the proposed amendments. Written comments should be submitted to the planning department. If a specified person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Grey Highlands before the zoning bylaw is passed, the specified person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council of the municipality of Grey Highlands to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And in addition, they may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. It is important to note that if you wish to be mailed a notice of the passing of the bylaw and/or notice of decision, and you do not live within 120 meters of the subject property, you must provide your request in writing to the planning department of the municipality of Grey Highlands. Registering for this virtual meeting does not represent your written request. A guideline sheet is available upon request. So agenda item 3.1 is zoning bylaw amendment application number Z02-2025, Allister Brown. That's affecting lands owned by Allister Victor Brown. And the legal description, quite lengthy here. Lot 12, south side of James Street. 13, south side of James Street. 14, south side of James Street. 10, north side of Harvey Street. 11, north side of Harvey Street. 12, north side of Harvey Street. 13, north side of Harvey Street. 14, north side of Harvey. Plan 10, Artemisia. Part Lot 5, north side Harvey Street. Lot 6, north side of Harvey Street. Lot 7, north side of Harvey Street. Lot 8, north side of Harvey Street. Lot 9, north side of Harvey Street. Lot 10, north side of Harvey Street. Lot 10, south side of James Street. Lot 11, south side of James Street. Lot 5, south side of Harvey Street. Lot 6, south side of Harvey Street. Lot 7, south side of Harvey Street. Plan 10, Artemisia. Part Queen Street, Harvey Street. Plan 10, Artemisia. Closed by AR 12641, as in R429216, Grey Highlands. And it has a civic address of 130 James Street. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 28th day of January 2025 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear presentations by the applicant or their agent. Is there somebody wishing to speak on this file? If you could raise your hand, please. And I see Greg Ford has raised their hand. If we could move him over, please.
I've moved him over, so he should be showing up here.
Okay, I'm seeing him there. You can unmute Greg, please.
There.
There we go.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and I should show you my, oh, hold on. Sorry. There we go.
There. Great. Good evening.
Good afternoon. As you know, my name's Greg Ford, and I'm just sitting in on behalf of Mr. Brown, to go over this zoning bylaw amendment. As you may know, it's a condition of a consent that was conditionally granted 2 weeks ago. So it's part and parcel of the original consent. And that's really all I have to say.
Okay. Well, we'll hear from our planner and then stay on the line. There may be questions from council and or the public.
I'll be
So
here.
at this time, the municipal planner will advise of any comments received and provide an overview of the purpose and effect of the bylaw. Planner Pasha, please.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the proposal, the subject property is a 2.81 hectare parcel of land that is located in Priceville with the municipal address 130 James Street. The property has frontage onto James Street, Prince Street, and Artemisia Glenelg Town Line. The lands are designated secondary settlement area in the Grey County and Grey Highlands official plans and are subject to the residential development and heavy industrial zone provisions within the zoning bylaw 2004-50. The reason the property is zoned M2 is because it used to be owned by the Canadian Pacific Railway. The rail line on the property has been inactive since 1984. The property currently contains a dwelling with a legal entrance onto James Street. And the subject lands were two separate lots when the applicant acquired the lands in 1997 and 2000 respectively. By virtue of a nuance within the Planning Act, when the two abutting properties are owned by the same person, their titles are automatically merged on land registry. The applicant is proposing to sever a 0.49 hectare parcel of land that will have a depth of 118 meters and 37 meters of frontage onto Prince Street. The retained parcel will be reduced to 2.32 hectares in area and will maintain frontage onto James Street and Artemisia Glenelg Town Line. This this consent was approved conditionally 2 weeks ago through consent application B02-2025. Part of the condition of the consent is applying for a rezoning application for the severed lot of 0.49 hectares. And basically, the retained parcel will be rezoned to residential with a holding provision on it. So the zoning bylaw amendment that is the focus of this report will facilitate the severance file B02-2025 by rezoning a portion of the subject lands as residential R-517H so that the lots created comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw 2004-50. So in terms of the purpose and effect, the effect of this bylaw is to amend Schedule A of Zoning Bylaw 2004-50 by rezoning the subject lands from development D and heavy industrial M2 to residential 517H. On land zoned R517H, the provisions of the R zone shall apply except where they conflict with the provisions of the section. Where there is a conflict, the provision of the section shall prevail. The lands are subject to a holding provision. No building or structures may be erected and no site alteration is permitted, and no building permits may be issued prior to the removal of the holding provision. The hold may be lifted by Council of Grey Highlands subject to the following conditions being completed. A record of site condition is completed and filed with the MECP to address any remnant hazards that may be present on the subject lands from the previous railway usage. So this zoning amendment is mainly going, as you can see on the screen, the site plan. The holding provision will only include areas lot 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10. In the area directly behind the proposed severed lot. That is the purpose for the holding provision is so that it's to prevent any development on that area that is currently zoned as M2. that because of the fact that the M2 zone no longer apply or no longer represents the nature of the surrounding land use. And in terms of comments received, Grey County planning staff have stated that provided that a holding condition is placed on the proposed severed lands, that is, there's a correction there, it's proposed retained lands, to ensure that a record of site condition is filed with the MECP prior to any further development. Staff have no concerns with the proposal. County ecology staff and county transportation have no concerns with the proposed application. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority have stated that they have no objections with the proposed consent or the zoning amendment application. Highlands Building Services have stated that they ask that all applicable law be met at the time of building applications, to include RSC acceptance lot certificate. Highlands Environmental Services have no comments or concerns, and Highlands Transportation have stated that a residential entrance pre-approval has been issued. No other comments or concerns from transportation at this time. And that is all.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions from members of council for either our planner or the applicant? Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so I'll go to the public. Any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment or have any comments or questions, please indicate and state your name and address. So you can use the raise hand feature on the computer to indicate that you'd like to speak on this file. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand. So, anything from council? Okay, if not, as there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. Thank you, Greg, for attending.
And thank you very much for your well presented presentation.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good night.
All right. Good night.
All right, we'll move on to our next file. Item 3.2 is zoning bylaw amendment application number Z03-2025, Beelen, affecting lands owned by 1000706466 Ontario Incorporated. The legal description is part lot 1, concession 2, Artemisia, part 2, 16R 1586, Grey Highlands, with a civic address of 315045 3rd Line A. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 28th day of January 2025 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear presentations by the applicant or their agent. And I see the agent is Miriam Vasni. If you would like to speak, could you raise your hand and we'll move you over. There we go.
I'm sorry. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. My name is Miriam Vasni. I'm with Planwells, and we are the planning firm representing the applicants. I just have a short presentation. And yes, next slide, please. So this proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is a condition of consent B03-2025, which facilitated a lot addition. And this consent application was approved with conditions on February 11th in 2025. Next slide, please. So for the zoning, the enlarged parcel complies with all the provisions of the existing implementing zone, which is the rural RU zone. The retained parcel we are proposing to rezone it to the rural residential RUR zone, as this would better reflect the new lot configuration of the retained parcel. Next slide, please. So this is the retained parcel, and these measurements are from Grey County GIS mapping system. The retained parcel meets all setback provisions of the RUR zone. No exceptions will be required. And that is my quick presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll go to our municipal planner, but hang in there and we'll maybe have questions from council or the public. So at this time, the municipal planner will advise of any comments received and provide an overview of the purpose and effect of the bylaw. And Planner Pasha, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to go straight ahead into the purpose and effect for this one. The effect of this bylaw is to amend Schedule A of Zoning Bylaw 2004-50 by rezoning the subject lands from rural to rural residential. And the subject lands are, as indicated, it's only the area that is highlighted in red. In terms of comments received, Grey County planning staff have stated that provided positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority regarding the hazard lands, county planning staff have no concerns with the subject application. Grey Solway Conservation Authority has stated that they have no objections with the proposed applications. Highlands Building Services have stated that they have no concerns in regards to the severance, the proposed lot line realignment. Septic systems must be on the same lot as the building it is supporting. It appears that the septic system is on the lot area of the existing house and is not affected by lot adjustments. They have no further concerns with any of the applications. Grey Highlands Environmental Services have stated that they have no comments or concerns. And lastly, Grey Highlands Transportation and Public Services have stated no new lot is being proposed and each parcel will have its existing residential entrance. No comments or concerns from Transportation and Public Services at this time. And that is all.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions from members of council for our planner or the applicant's agent? Okay, not seeing anything. So I'll move on to the public. Any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment or have any comments or questions, please indicate and state your name and address. And again, you can use the raise hand feature on the computer. Just give it a few seconds here. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody wishing to speak. So last chance for council members. Okay, nothing. So as there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, item 3.3 is zoning bylaw amendment, application number Z31 2024, Greenview apartment, affecting lands owned by Markdale Green Lane GP Incorporated. The legal description is part of Lot 99, Concession 1, northeast of the Toronto and Sydenham Road, designated as parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on reference plan 16R 12035, Grey Highlands, and it has a civic address of 23 Greenview Lane. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 28th day of January 2025 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. Now, I'm just going to have our planner, and now I think Planner Pasha, are you're taking this one again? Okay. Can you just indicate or say why this was on last month's meeting and just to explain why before I go to the agent, please?
Through you, Chair. So there was an issue in regards to the posting of the notice on the subject property. Essentially, we had met a few of the requirements for notice posting. However, there was an issue where one of the notices that was posted on the property was not located in the correct area in terms of the signage being posted, which is why, and since we didn't meet that requirement for the notice postage of the application, we have to now redo that the notice submission as well as the distribution and redo it through the legislation and the requirements under the Planning Act, which is why it was forwarded on to this meeting.
So it's just to make sure that everybody was notified properly, basically.
That is correct.
All right, thank you for that. So at this time, council will hear a presentation by the applicant or their agent, and I see Krystin Rennie has raised her hand. If we could move her over, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, it's Krystin Rennie from Georgian Planning Solutions. I'm the agent acting on behalf of the property owner for the Greenview Lane apartment development. Next slide, please. The purpose of the public meeting tonight is to consider a zoning bylaw amendment to enable a 5-story residential apartment consisting of 60 rental apartments. The property is currently zoned residential multiple, and the laneway is zoned commercial C2. Permitted uses in the RM zone include apartment buildings. Next slide, please. As part of our submission to the municipality for this application, the supporting documents listed below were included: a planning justification report, geotechnical report, functional servicing and stormwater management report, as well as a traffic impact study and detailed engineering drawings for the property. Next slide, please. The property is located at 23 Greenview Lane. The lot area is 0.65 hectares in size, and the frontage of the property is actually along Toronto Street, the long sort of narrow area laneway. That is our frontage. Surrounding uses in the area include residential development. Next slide, please. The purpose of the meeting today is to consider some zoning bylaw amendments to the site. So for the apartment, the following relief is requested: maximum number of 60 units on the property. A minimum of 70 parking spaces are proposed currently. A reduction in the minimum lot frontage from 30 meters to 8.84 meters. And again, that's that frontage along Toronto Street that I mentioned on the previous slide. A reduction in the minimum rear yard setback from 9 to 6 meters. And proposing an outdoor amenity area of 380 meters square plus proposed 175 meters square. They're separate sections, and you'll see that on the site plan. As well, the parking lot setback will be reduced to 0.75 in one section at the corner of Greenview Lane and the parking lot entrance. And I'll show that on, well, I guess I can't really show you, but hopefully you can see it on the next slide with the site plan. So this is the site plan. The building is approximately 1,130 meters squared. The apartment ranges, the apartments range from 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom, and in the size of 700 square feet to 900 square feet. There's 70 parking spaces provided on the property, which include 7 visitor parking spaces and 2 accessible parking spaces. The outdoor amenity spaces that I spoke to on the previous slide are shown in green, the solid green, and the hatched green behind the proposed apartment building. The landscaping proposed on the property is 1,100 meters squared, which is above what is required. And access to the site is by way of a private laneway / driveway off of Toronto Street. So the access point that is noted sort of on the left-hand side from Toronto Street is actually a private driveway to get to the apartment building, not a municipal road. Next slide, please. These are some examples of elevations of what the building could look like. Next slide, please. A couple other area options to look at there. And that's the orientation of the building. Next slide, please. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I also have Evan Lundquist from Chatham Engineering with me today if there's any specific questions related to engineering.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go to our planner for his report, and then we'll see if there's any questions. So at this time, the municipal planner will advise of any comments received and provide an overview of the purpose and effect of the bylaw. Planner Pasha.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to move directly to the overview and purpose and effect of the report. The effect of the proposed amendment will be to apply the following zoning provisions to the subject property through a site-specific zoning amendment. An apartment with a maximum number of 60 dwelling units is permitted, notwithstanding section 7.2.3a of the zoning bylaw that requires a minimum lot frontage of 30 meters. A minimum lot frontage of 8.84 meters is required. Notwithstanding section 7.2.3g of the zoning bylaw that requires a minimum rear yard setback of 9 meters, a minimum rear yard setback of 6 meters is required. Section 7.2.4d, which imposes a maximum unit density of 40 units per hectare, does not apply. Notwithstanding section 7.2.4e that requires a minimum outdoor amenity area of 15 square meters per unit in consolidated form, an outdoor amenity area that is at least 380 square meters in area is required. 6. Notwithstanding the minimum parking requirements established in section 5.14 of this bylaw, the minimum required number of parking spaces is 70. Notwithstanding section 5.14D IB that requires driveways to be set back more than 1 meter from side yard lot lines, the minimum setback to the driveways from the side lot line are permitted to be reduced to 0 meters and 0.75 meters as depicted in the site plan for this proposal, which will be attached as a schedule to the bylaw for the zoning amendment. Number 8, the lands are subject to a holding provision. No buildings or structures may be erected and no building permits may be issued prior to the removal of the holding provision. The hold may be lifted by council subject to the following conditions being completed. A site plan control approval has been issued and a site plan agreement has been entered into between the landowner and the municipality. B, water and wastewater capacity for the apartment has been confirmed to be available and has been formally allocated through a decision of council. And that is all for the purpose and effect section of the report. Now, in terms of the comments received, Grey County Planning and Development have, in summary, stated that county planning staff have no concerns with the subject application. The county requests notice of any decision rendered with respect to this file. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority have stated that the SVCA staff find the application acceptable. The subject property does not contain any natural hazard features or other environmental features of interest to SVCA. As such, it is the opinion of the SVCA staff that the application is consistent with the natural hazard policies of the PPS 2020 and the County of Grey official plan and the Municipality of Grey Highlands official plan. Grey Highlands Building Services have stated the following. Building Services review of proposed 5-story unit, 60 residential unit apartment building will require to meet all applicable law at the time of building permit application. This will include required fire department access route design as identified in Division B, Part 3 of Ontario Building Code. Also, the OBC requirements for barrier-free units. The provincial requirements that at least 15% of suites within a multi-unit residential building must be designed with basic accessibility features, including barrier-free path of travel and doorway into the kitchen, bedroom, living room, full bathroom. Suites with accessibility features must be distributed throughout the building and represent the types and sizes of suites available in the building. Grey Highlands Environmental Services have no concerns with the functional servicing report. Capacity should be allocated as per the water and wastewater capacity allocation policy, which will require an application for capacity and this to be granted through bylaw. There is sufficient capacity for this proposed development. An appropriately sized water meter and backflow preventer will be required. Due to the size of the apartment building, the municipality will not be responsible for waste and recycling services. Highlands Transportation Services have stated that transportation and public spaces have no comments or concerns that affect the proposed zoning amendment, but have provided the applicant with comments that will need to be taken into consideration for site plan approval purposes. Highlands Fire Emergency Services have stated that they have no comments or concerns at this time for this application. Further comments will be provided during site plan approval process. And I believe that is all from in terms of comments received. We have one comment that was provided by a member of public. And I'm pulling that up right now as it is not attached. This was just an email sent to the municipality by Margaret Russell. So Margaret Russell has stated that I have not seen a notice of the rescheduled date and time. Written notice has been sent to properties within 120 meters. A 5-story building is a ridiculous proposal. In the original notice, there was no mention of the planner or clerk's name as the proponent of the notice. If the first meeting was canceled due to no notice being posted, the property, who exactly is going to see the notice? This is a dead-end street. I don't think people go around looking for signs on properties. I sent a letter of my concerns, which I trust you received, and that it will be presented during the meeting when it's held. I would also appreciate being notified of the date and time. I also will appreciate a response to this email. Thank you. In terms of the comments received from the public, that was mainly it.
Okay. So that's
And
the
that
end
is
of
all.
your report.
That is all. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council for our planner or the agent? And I'm seeing a couple of hands up. So Deputy Mayor Nielsen first.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a quick question for Planner Pasha, just in regards to that notice. Was a response given in time for this? She asked a couple times just to confirm the date of change of the meeting tonight. Just wanting to confirm that a response was given.
I believe, yes, a response was given by Manager Payne.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Allwood.
Thank you, Chair Allen, for you. The outdoor amenity space in the section our planner just talked of, the purpose and effect, he talks about the 380. That's shown as a parquet, and there's a separate outdoor amenity space at 175. And I think Krystin's report mentioned outdoor amenities as 175 meters. I just wondered whether the exception 5.17 has captured all of that.
Planner Pasha or
Sorry.
Krystin?
I'm happy to answer it.
Okay, go ahead.
There's those two spaces. The original submission did not have that larger space, the 380, which kind of transitions towards that other new subdivision to the other side to the right of my site plan. So we have both of those. So I've just included the additional little amenity space at the back for maybe a private barbecue area for the people who live within the apartment building, but the other part would be for the residents and for the neighborhood.
Thank you for that. So Planner Pasha, does your report capture that, or it just mentions the
So
three?
I think that
Go
the
ahead.
notice mentions that it's a minimum of 380, and so we're over and above what is the minimum. Am I correct?
Thank you.
sorry, through you, Chair. So yeah, that is correct, Councilor Elwood. The minimum requirement is the 300 square meter area, whereas the applicant has indicated that there's going to be more than 375 meters or 380 meters of outdoor amenity space.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Dubik.
Thank you. So first, just a question on the parquet, because in the report, it was stating that we would still decide if council would like to take that on and own that. Is that correct, or has that been already?
Don't think that's been decided yet, but go ahead, Krystin.
Yeah, I was just going through you, Chair. We haven't had that discussion about where it would land ultimately at the end of the day. If it would be the parkland to the municipality or if it would be part of the apartment building. We didn't get that far.
Okay, thank you. So that's a future decision to be made. Okay, thank you.
Yes, correct. Yes,
Just wondering if you could provide a little bit more, maybe a little color. Just, we talk a lot about sort of walkability, in the neighborhood and being able to bike. So are you taking into consideration sort of any trails, or I believe it's sort of butts up to a trail and you're using some sidewalks? Wondering maybe about.
I think we lost Councillor Dubik. Yeah. So, there she's back. We lost her for a little bit there, Councillor Dubik.
Yeah, sorry about that. My connectivity seems to be a little spotty today.
Do you want to
So
repeat?
just wondering, we talk a lot about walkability and bikeability. Wondering if you can just provide a little bit more context around how you're thinking about that. Thanks.
Go ahead, Krystin.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Is there a way we can put up the site plan just so that I can sort of speak to that and we can have a visual? Is there an opportunity there, or should I just talk? I have one in front of me. So. Oh, there we go. Of course. Yes. Okay, so we do, along the laneway, there is a proposed sidewalk that would allow people to connect to the Toronto Street infrastructure. And then it also goes the other direction into the development towards Margaret Elizabeth, so connecting in that way. It's also adjacent to that parkette area, which we would consider that the bigger neighborhood would have access to. So we've tried to sort of connect those areas so that there is that ability to have recreation on the site and or be able to connect with all of the rest of the opportunities that are in Markdale.
Councillor
Okay, great.
Dubik.
Yeah, thank you for that. And if I may, just one more question. With regards to stormwater, so do you understand that it's going to be, the flow is going to be directed to a stormwater pond northeast of the site? Could we just get and I'm not sure maybe if that's maybe more appropriate to our own planner, but could we get a little bit more understanding sort of how that will flow, and in terms of that stormwater pond, where does that outlet go to? Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, we do have Evan Lundquist on the line from Tatham, and he's our consulting engineer. So I think he would probably be the best person to address, unless Planner Pasha wants to take an option doing that.
I think we should bring Evan over. No offense, Planner Pasha, but so yes, if we could bring Evan over, please. I see a member of the public has raised their hand. I'll be getting to the public after I deal with council questions.
Good evening,
There we
members
go.
of council. I'm Krystin introduced me there. I'm Evan Lundquist. I'm with Tatham Engineering. So with respect to stormwater management, it might help if Krystin or Planner Pasha could throw that site plan back up on screen.
Okay, we'll bring that back up.
And then I can provide the general oversight. So I think, as you guys are aware, Tatham is also the engineer record for the neighboring Devonley site, which is referred to as Fairway 1, as well as Stonebrook subdivision to the northeast of all this. And then further northeast, somewhat disconnected from the subdivision lands, is sort of a regional stormwater management pond, if you will. So tributary to that is Fairway 1, Stonebrook, as well as future Loon Call subdivision, which upgrades were planned and or have been partially implemented to sort of increase the capacity of that pond there. So with respect to the site we're looking at right now, as part of the Fairway 1 subdivision, there was a certain allocation given to this property. So the simplest way I could explain that is this property can be constructed in a way that a certain level of imperviousness or hard surfaces could be implemented on site, and this would be free to drain uncontrolled if it was within that limit. Now, obviously it's higher than that, so there are additional quantity controls provided on this site by way of some underground storage, which are some oversized pipes, as well as some surface storage for your major storm event. So the excess quantity control is provided by the site, and then it is released at a rate that was designed for in the storm sewer of Fairway 1, as well as through Stonebrook, and ultimately through the field, which is future loon call, which connects it to the storm pond downstream. Is that
Okay, thank you. Councillor
Yeah.
Dubik?
Yeah, thank you. In terms of the storm pond, where is there a pipe that releases from the storm pond? Is there like
Yes.
another exit? And where does that go to?
so northeast of the storm pond, there is sort of a tributary, if I recall correctly. It's been some time since I've looked at that report. There's a tributary to the Rocky Saugeen River. So there is an outlet from the swim pond to what's called a level spreader, which is a large, sort of long riprap feature that sort of disperses flow evenly for reasons of erosion control and other reasons. And it goes overland to this tributary. And that's sort of the outlet configuration. So it is considered by the MECP as an end of pipe facility. So there's no piping beyond that. It goes there. The requisite quality and quantity controls are provided, and it discharges overland to the tributary of the river.
Okay, and then in terms of just the site itself, has there been considerations for infiltration at the site itself in terms of sort of the maximum possible so that less is being piped down to other areas?
At this time, no. And the reasoning behind that is the foresight in the original design of the pond. Items such as volumetric controls, erosion controls downstream have been accounted for in that facility. To my knowledge, implementation of features such as LIDs, which are becoming more popular these days for the reasons you're mentioning there, Councillor Dubik. There could be feasibility to implement those. There is a good amount of landscaped area on this site. Ultimately, through site plan control, stuff like that can get worked into the mix. And I think I'll leave it at that for tonight.
Okay, and just as a follow-up to that, and this will be my last one. So to be able to kind of discuss that and kind of work that in, where in the process does that happen?
As far as sort of designing and constructing of these things? So,
Yes.
So in the detailed design phase, at the current level we are right now for zoning bylaws, typically what we're looking for is some high-level feasibility, which are reports plus an amendment that was prepared earlier this year to review some site plan changes, demonstrate that yes, we can provide the stormwater management with the sort of controls we need to provide on site, as well as taking into consideration the end of pipe treatment and storage downstream. When we get into detailed design, we would further refine that to say, we know this is feasible to provide this stormwater control and other opportunities to make things better, I guess, if you will. So we will definitely take a look at that during the detailed design stage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see Councillor Wickens, you're next.
There, I got myself unmuted. Yeah, so I guess this question is for Evan from Tatum. So as you know, we have some works on Lawler dealing with overland flow. And that is going to go across the golf course and apparently discharge into the same creek that we're talking about. And we're having a lot of discussion about that, about the warming of the waters and stuff like that for trout. Can you tell me whose property or is it a series of stormwater management ponds? But whose property is the stormwater management pond on now, like out of Fairway and is it Stoneley or whatever it is? Or is it
My
on,
oh,
is it on Runecall property? I'm not sure where it is.
I believe
my-
it's municipal property.
It's municipal, okay?
correct. So typically they are assumed by the municipality upon construction and acceptance of all the works. I am not the engineer of record for those two developments, so I would have to defer to further. I know both those sites are in some stage of assumption.
Yeah, yeah.
But I believe as part of, they are listed on the CLI ECA, the Great Highlands CLI ECA, as the transitional facility, or that's the last I recall of it. So
Yeah, so anyways, there is quite a bit of concern about all this stormwater hitting the little creek before it hits the rocky side. So
yeah.
All right, there's probably going to be more discussion about this before this is all over. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from members of council? Councillor Wickens, if you can figure out how to lower your hand. There we go. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. The parking, it says 70 spots. I see 3 of them are around the back of the apartment. I'm assuming those 3 won't be for tenants. And then my other question is, and it's on everybody's mind this year, is snow storage. I don't see any area for the tons and tons of snow that we've received this year. Krystin? Or
Thank you.
who?
Yep.
Okay.
We can probably both chime in on this one. The parking spaces at the back are additional parking that probably could be used by visitors or a tenant that maybe wants to go in the back door as opposed to the front door. So we were just trying to maximize the amount of parking that we had. They wouldn't, and as you note at the front, the accessibility parking spaces are right by the front door. So that was our intent. I think you're right. On this plan, we don't have the snow storage sorted or marked. We do have that parkette area, and then there is that additional landscape property that's just to a little bit to the northwest, with the additional parking on the other side of the trail there. Or the other option, which is sometimes for sites that are in infill development, is private snow removal from the site. So we haven't really quite got to that part yet, but I think there are a few areas that we could have some on-site snow storage. And in a year like this year, I don't think we would have had enough room, even if we had the whole parking lot for snow storage this year, unfortunately. It's a nice winter, though. I gotta agree. Anyway, yes, that is something that we need to probably sort out within the next step of this process.
All right. And then my other question is where the Greenview Lane, where that little, the sidewalk takes a little, deviates around the property. So that's restricting that Greenview Lane to one laneway, like one way there, or not one way, but one lane.
Lane, yes. So the reasoning of that is that back in the day, there was an encroachment of a structure. And so when it was surveyed, it basically took the boundary of the building that was encroaching as part of that updated survey, and it still stands there as of today. And so it is not it was taken out of that Greenview Lane laneway. And it is not part of the property, the subject project property that we're working with now. So there was some discussions about purchasing that little blurb, but that was a long time ago, and I was not part of that, and it didn't come to fruition.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up from members of council, so I'm going to go to the public now. So any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment or have any comments or questions, please indicate and make sure you state your name and address, please. Okay, I've got some hands up, so we'll go to Shelley first.
Hi there. I live on Mullen Street, just behind there. And when is the project expected?
Could you give your address, please?
Oh, here, 100 Mullen Street in Markdale.
Okay. Thank you.
When is this project expected to begin?
Krystin, probably don't have an answer for that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yes. I mean, we have to move through this zoning application, site plan approval, and then detailed engineering. Yeah, so it's not tomorrow, that's for sure. But I can't really give you a time frame.
Okay, the parkette, will it have like toys for kids to play on and things? Is that how will it be designed?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We haven't quite got to the details associated with that at this point. It was really determining where that parkette would be in the park. In terms of programming, that would come through sort of the next process and through the site plan approval.
Okay. Yeah, I just, being behind, I'm concerned with noise and water, I guess, are my two big things. Because if the snow goes over in that one corner, it's going to trickle down into my yard. But yeah, that was my only concern.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to Rebecca next.
Hello?
Hi, Rebecca.
Perfect. Okay, my name is Rebecca. I live at 134 Toronto Street North, so almost directly across from the Greenview lane. And I do have a lot of concerns with this apartment building, strictly being that we don't have enough jobs, we don't have enough daycare, we don't have enough amenities currently in Markdale to support the amount of people that you want to bring in. I know for myself during the snowstorm, having to go to Foodland and purchase groceries for my family because I couldn't go anywhere else. I walked out of there with 6 things and spent $100. So you're bringing in apartment buildings that are supposed to be for lower income families who can't afford to live here because we don't have the amenities for it. I don't think that you have taken in consideration the amount of traffic that we have on Toronto Street during the summer hours. I know trying to turn into my house, I've waited a half hour in those lineups trying to just turn into my own house, and you're adding another 60 units with possibly 2 people a unit plus. I don't think anybody has really sat down and thought this through, adding all of these people, considering we already have an apartment building that's supposed to be going up. Of course, I don't know when that one's supposed to be going up, but we have already approved that one. The amount of people that are going to be coming in, we don't have the jobs to support them. Not everybody can work at Chapman's. Not everybody wants to work at Chapman's. So I know myself and a lot of other people around here are very much against this building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for those comments. And next we'll go to Clay Blakey. Planner Pasha, while we're moving Clay over, I got an email from Marg Russell indicating that she had also sent another letter in. So if you could be searching for that while we're listening to Clay, please.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Clay Blakey. I'm the property owner at 21 Greenview Lane, directly adjacent to this subject property.
Okay.
I'd like to open my comment by suggesting that I'm not opposed to this high density housing. I realize we need it, and I realize we need more housing in general, and that's all levels of government, right from federal on down, are encouraging this. However, in addition to all the regulations and bylaws and building code restrictions that a development this site needs to adhere to, I would like to also throw in that a development, especially of this size, and should also make sense. And in my opinion, and I think it's already been expressed by a couple of other ladies, maybe not in these exact words, but my words are, this development as proposed on this site does not make sense. And I just want to say that again, that I'm not opposed to high density and more housing. I realize we need it, but I would certainly hope that everybody could agree that this type of housing needs to make sense in a sensible location. I would like to start by asking, I just like a point of clarification. The registered owner on the land registry office is listed as, and I'll just look at my paper here to make sure I get it correct, Markdale Greenview GP Incorporated. And yet on the planning report, it says the registered owner is Markdale Green Lane GP Incorporated. I know that's not a big difference, but can somebody clarify which is correct? Is it Greenview or Green Lane?
Planner Pasha?
Through your chair, I believe it is Markdale Greenview GP Inc. I believe that's a typo within the report.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Okay, I'd also I'm going to run through things here. I don't want to take up any more time than necessary, but I do have a large number of concerns. Beginning with this Tatum Engineering Traffic Report, which was dated July 31st, 2023, and was prepared for Stonebrook Developments, which I don't believe is the current owner at all. It's also at least 2 years old, obviously. I believe it's totally outdated. The only things that may be accurate on it currently would be the measurements and so on, intersection measurements and sight lines. I don't believe there's new trees or such blocking views at Highway 10 and at the entrance to Greenview Lane. But the numbers certainly won't be correct. We purchased this property in March of 2024, and it required significant cleanup, as many people in the town, I'm sure, can attest to, even if they don't choose to go down that one-lane street, has been significantly improved since our ownership. Which means we've been there on site quite regularly, and I concur with the previous lady, I forget her name, doesn't matter to make my point, that traffic there is very congested. I would like to ask, has anybody even thought of approaching the MTO? I know what the answer would be, but has it even been considered that a traffic light application be put in just to see what the response is from MTO?
You go ahead, Clay, with all your concerns, and then we'll respond.
Oh, okay. I hope you're writing them down. It's going to be a very high volume of traffic. The traffic has increased since July of 2023. I can attest to that personally. I don't need somebody sitting there all day long doing a traffic count manually to tell me that. And I don't think anybody currently attending this meeting has been through Markdale lately, especially in the summer weekend, knows the traffic is atrocious there. The other thing is, it's already been brought up, but I guess it's our property, which we knew at the time it went out there, but we never dreamed a proposal of this magnitude was going to be proposed for that site, is the restriction of one lane. I can't see how anybody can see that as being safe due to the high volume of traffic to reduce this street to one lane at that point in front of my property, which I had no control of. Was not the property owner at the time that easement or adjustment was made. But I can't see how anybody can consider that safe to reduce what's going to become a busy dead end street, to reduce to one lane and rely on the goodwill of the drivers to yield to each other at appropriate times. The other thing is there's pedestrians too, and as I see on the drawing of the site plan, it says there'll be a ramped sidewalk. I'm not sure I need some clarification on that. Does that mean cars can drive up onto the sidewalk and potentially hit a child or a pedestrian on foot or on bicycle? Is that what a ramp sidewalk means? That people have the option of driving on a sidewalk while they're eastbound in towards the property, the apartment building itself? There's also going to be an extremely high volume. We were talking about a 60-story unit. So there could be anywhere from one person per unit to if perhaps some younger people who we know work at Chapman's now, not all younger, but I guess further down, I'll ask another question related to that, but there could be anywhere from probably 5 or 6 people per unit to 1 person per unit. So say there's an average of 3. That could be a potential of 180 people residing in that building once it's fully occupied. And then is Markdale, I'd like to have a clarification too, is it still considered a village? And it doesn't really matter whether it's designated that or it's moved up to town status due to increase in population, but it's also a very rural area. We all attest to that, totally surrounded by farmland. There's very inadequate transportation within the town limits. I'm not even aware of a taxi company, and there's certainly not any type of transit. Any transit that does exist is owned Sound of Toronto, but that doesn't get people around in the immediate community and to the outskirts, especially the east and west of Markdale itself. And as previously stated, not everybody wants to work at the largest employer in town, and not everybody can work there. Now, also granted, I know there'll also be some seniors, probably retirees living there, but they also need vehicles. My point is that everybody that lives in that building will probably need at least 1 vehicle. Some of the reports I have read that were on the municipal website suggest this property should have up to 103 parking spaces. Normally, section 5.1 of the parking standards report that I see here, I don't see how anybody can reasonably suggest that we can drop down to 70. The other issue is, where are they going to park? I believe in the planner's report, it suggests that they can park on adjacent streets. Well, how's that going to work? Stonebrook, Mullen, and all those streets are already overcrowded. The other thing is to overnight parking. All these residents, I'm assuming, are all part of a family connection of friends somewhere, are probably going to have overnight guests at some point. Are they going to be parking in front of my property? That's a question I have. I wish somebody could answer. The other issue is already brought up. Greenview Lane is not a municipal street. I'm assuming Grey Highlands has been, I've never actually seen the plow go down, although I'm regularly on that street. I've never actually seen the plow go down, so I'm assuming it's a municipality of Grey Highlands plowing the private drive. And what is that going to continue in the future? Because I do have a deeded right away to my property, but I'd like to know how I'm going to get to it in the wintertime in the future. The other thing is, who's going to do bylaw enforcement? It's guaranteed that people are going to assume or just be coming into the middle of the night for overnight guest situations. They're just going to park their car where they feel they can, or they feel they may not be blocking traffic. Who's going to provide the parking bylaw services? If it's a private lane, is it going to be the developer, the building owner? Is it going to be the municipality? Will they have jurisdiction? Or are we going to be bothering the OPP for such nuisance calls, which will add to the calls of service, which down the road will no doubt increase the cost to every ratepayer in Grey Highlands, or more requests for service from the OPP, therefore an increased budget to the OPP. The other, another very serious concern I have is fire protection. I don't understand. I know a number of volunteer firefighters and so on. I don't know, on this planning committee report to council dated February 24, or sorry, I guess it was the 15th. Anyway, it doesn't, I don't see the actual date of the report. It just says the planning hearing that was submitted to council. It was approved the February 20, 2025. It says under the Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services section, it says no comments or concerns. I find that very hard to believe that anybody on the fire department does not have any concerns. I'm not sure who made that statement, but it's worth questioning. We're talking a 5-story building, and somebody needs, I don't know if you have plans in the works to purchase an aerial ladder truck. I would assume that would be the case if there's no concerns, but if not, that's a very serious concern. I can't see any large fire vehicle such as that being any less than $2 million. I hope that's been put in a future budget. I don't think anybody wants to, heaven forbid, a fire ever break out on the floor, and certainly the 5th floor. But I think the municipality, correct me if I'm wrong, is responsible to provide fire safety and protection. And I don't think the current ladder situation and the equipment that the Grey Highlands has would meet that need. The other thing is distance to property lines. There's all these amendments being requested for distance to property lines. especially at the front corner of my property, a 0 meter setback right at the corner at the entrance lane to the property, or point something anyway, next to nothing. Should it not, and it's supposed to be 5 meters? Why should I have to have cars cutting the corner of my property when there's standards that's supposed to be enforced and divided by? I'd also like to know if there's going to be a permanent. I understand there's going to be a temporary silt fence, which is basically just a piece of heavy vinyl, maybe 1 meter tall at the most during construction, but will there be a permanent noise barrier fence, or at least a height, of 10 feet or more for a little bit of privacy to my property when the building is completed? I've also lost all my privacy to my backyard, which it's my property's been near 3/4 of the length of the entire subject property. There's going to be noise pollution, dust and debris, constant traffic, privacy, and accessibility concerns. One thing I'd also like answered by someone: when was this current proposal as it sits today, when was this first submitted to the municipality of Grey Highlands for consideration? As mentioned already, I purchased my property on March 28th of 2024. There's a good chance I would have not purchased this property had I known that this development of this monstrosity was coming to this area. I was aware that a developer owned the property and aware that it was zoned residential, but to fit in with the whole entire neighborhood, I thought at most there might be more townhouse units coming. There should have been a notice posted of this coming, I would think, that minute that this something of subject of this size should have been posted somewhere on the subject property or somebody the minute the application went in. I know maybe there's not a legal requirement for that, but for something that's totally out of character for this immediate neighborhood, I think we should have had more notice about that. I'm also concerned about this rainwater and runoff stuff. I'm not so sure that the water, there's engineering and slopes and grades and drain pipes, I get it, but I'm not so sure that if we get a heavy rainstorm or a heavy meltwater in the spring, I'm not going to be flooded out. I'm not sure at this point if anybody can guarantee that. Also, in terms of if there is happen to be a major fire, amount of water that's going to be poured on that subject property to put it out is going to be affecting all the adjacent properties. And then if there's a sprinkler system, it will be going non-stop until the fire is extinguished, which creates more runoff. I guess in summation, there's more stuff I could say, but I don't want to eat up all your time. But on the other question, sorry, there is one more question I would like a firm answer on if I can get one. I see there 1 and 2 bedroom units is what's proposed, but are any of these going to be affordable? Are any of these designated as affordable units? In my opinion, yes, we need more housing, but we also need more affordable housing. If these units are going to be, which current market rates would suggest could start at $2,500 and go up to $3,200 a month, I'm not sure who's going to be able to afford them anyway, even though they are required. There may be some seniors and retirees, and again, those that may want to put multiple people in one unit may be able to afford them, but I'm not sure the general public is going to be able to afford them. In closing, I'd just like to say, again, I'm not against high density housing. I realize we need it, but this proposal as proposed, it's just a total problem. I think we can all see that just with the parking issue alone. Each issue in and of itself is a major concern. But I'd like to say, but as it's proposed, the major beneficiary of this proposal is going to be the developer and owner, who's going to be collecting rent checks ongoing in the future. And the losers are going to be the residents of the municipality of Grey Highlands, with added expense for a fire truck, if they're going to actually purchase one or provide adequate fire protection, added police service costs, and added bylaw security, which is going to be necessary if this goes forward as proposed. I can't see any way around it. And I've also read somewhere, and I can't put my finger on it today, but if this unit goes through as proposed, that it's going to max out amongst other approved developments in the area, currently approved. If this one's approved, it'll max out, and somebody can please confirm or deny that it's going to max out the water and wastewater treatment as well as the water supply situation, which means that's going to have to be expanded again. And Markdale already has among the highest water and wastewater fees in the area, if not all of Ontario. I've done some research and tried to look at as many as I can, and Markdale is among the highest water and sewage rates already in Ontario. And again, who's going to pay for that? Is that going to result for the expansion of those services in the future that this development will require or cause? Are we going to saddle the taxpayer with that, or the utility payers in Markdale are already overburdened with the current water and sewer rates? Thanks for your time. I do appreciate it, and I hope I can get some answers to all of these concerns, because I believe nobody can deny that these are very justifiable concerns.
Okay, thank you for your comments. So I think some of the questions will probably have to be answered at another time, perhaps through a letter. But does any Evan, Krystin, Planner Pasha want to hit on some of the easier questions? Krystin.
Planner Pasha, do you want to go first?
I'll let you go first, Krystin.
Well, there is a lot definitely to take. I took a lot of notes, and so thank you for your comments, Mr. Blakey. Okay, let me just see here.
Maybe Krystin, Krystin, just before you start,
yes.
I want to let everybody know that these planning hearings, it is to gather information, not just for council, but also for our municipal staff and also the applicant. So I'm not saying that the applicant will change things, but they are listening to what the comments are, and they will go back and look at look at their proposal with the comments in mind. So it could very well be that it comes back as a little bit different than this. So I just want to let people know that that's quite often what happens after a public hearing. So Krystin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to mention that as well, that typically when we take the comments down from the public, any that are submitted or even spoken to at the public meeting, we add that to our comment matrix when we do our second submission into, or send it back into the municipality, how we've addressed it or what the concerns are, what we could do to help alleviate some of the concerns, or even just provide information that maybe it wasn't available for the neighbors to address those comments. So I have a lot of notes from Mr. Blakey, and I don't even really know where I could start off with. Yes, I know it's a rural area. The Grey Highlands is a very popular place right now. There's been a lot going on. I've been doing quite a bit of work in this area. And when I first started working, we were getting close to closing off the school, and now there's a new school. So it seems to be it's turned around, and that there's a lot of popularity with the municipality, just on a positive note in terms of Markdale in general. Let me just see. Yes, the units within the development are 1 to 2 bedrooms, and yes, there's a opportunity for affordability. Again, we're very early in the process in terms of what the rental will be. We know that there are programs within the county that help with affordability, and maybe not the whole site would be affordable rentals, but there's opportunities for sure moving forward. And that's a conversation that we'll have with the owner moving forward. So I can't really pinpoint what that's going to look like, but we've had conversations about it internally with our team. The parking aspect of things, the zoning bylaw that you guys have is fairly old. There's been a lot of sort of changes in the from a parking perspective, and a lot of municipalities are really relying on the person that owns the property to know what they need in order to rent those units and or sell the units. And so we sort of took the same approach that we did with the Main Street development. And in fact, we actually have more parking per unit for this particular development that was approved on the Main Street. So that's sort of where we came from. We weren't just randomly picking numbers. We were sort of working based on the number of units and sort of what's been happening within our other neighbors in our area, like Collingwood and Town of the Blue Mountains, Meaford. And so that's sort of where we came to. So, and that was part of the traffic impact study as well. In terms of the fire, I can add that one because we did have these exact same comments when we did the Main Street development, and the fire department was on the meeting actually and noted that they had the capacity in order to take care of the size of this building and the Main Street building. I'm sorry. Oh, anyway, yeah. So I think that that's really all that I can really talk about right now in terms of the comments that we heard from Mr. Blakey. But we will definitely formally address them back to the staff, and it'll end up in front of you as well.
All right, great, thank you. Planner Pasha or Evan, any comments from Mr. Blakey that you want to address now?
Not at this time. I think Krystin provided a pretty good outline of it, but definitely they're food for thought when we get into a more detailed design process and how we can make the site better for everyone.
Okay. Krystin, one question. Will this building be sprinklered?
I don't know the answer to that. I believe based on I'm just trying to think what we did. I don't, do you know, Evan? Go ahead. Evan will know. Evan knows everything. Yep.
So just building code requirements when we get into buildings of this size, fire suppression sprinklers are required, as well as non-combustible construction materials. So you're talking of reinforced concrete and such. So that plays a part to balance out what would be fire flow demands. So I'll leave it at that for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Planner Pasha, any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going to go over just a few things in relation to Mr. Blakey's comments. Like as it's already been reiterated before, this is a meeting mainly to receive comments from not only the public but also the council members. And these comments are something that we take back, we review it with the applicant, and then we provide a solution or further information regarding these comments. And we are currently in no way making a decision regarding any application right now. That's just one aspect. In terms of, there was a comment related to application of a traffic light. This was something I believe it was discussed within the traffic impact brief, and as stated in the report, when we went over it, there was no trigger for any improvements such as signalization or turn lanes given the volume of traffic, and transportation has noted that no concerns are in regard to these elements. But that's only stuff that was stated regarding the signalization comment. In terms of parking on the laneway, which is Greenview Lane, I believe this has been discussed with the applicant, where we've stated that there is no parking along Greenview Lane. Like, that laneway is meant to be open and it's meant to be traversed through, and there is no potential blocking on the area. Similarly, because Greenview Lane is a private road, snow removal isn't in the purview of the municipality. It would most likely be done privately, and that is something that's going to be addressed through the site plan approval process rather than the zoning amendment process. The zoning amendment process is mainly there to provide applicants with the permission and provide them with whatever permissions they require to proceed with their proposed development. There's that. And I believe that is all I can comment on for now.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. On another note, I do have a letter from sorry, just pulling it up, from Margaret Russell. I could go over it. It is a bit difficult to read, so please bear with me. We'll be attaching this letter as part of the report, coming report to council later on in the future.
And Planner Pasha?
Yes.
Just one comment when you're reading the letter. If you could just slow down a little bit. The last letter, you tend to really motor through those letters. So
apologies for that.
Just so everybody can can hear and understand what's being written or being read. Thank you.
So it says, Sir and Madam would like to recognize as a person of interest in this proceeding, believe that the proposal of a 5-story apartment building will far exceed the height allocation within the bylaws, and indeed to do not, sorry, this there are not any building heights that are more than 2 stories in the municipality. There is no public road access to the property, as the road in part of the property under consideration fronts onto Highway 10, and again be respect.
It's a hard one to read. I have a
Yeah.
copy of it, and it's cursive and it's very
It's a bit
small.
difficult, but that's about it. And they have concerns regarding the accessway into Highway 10.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just going to the zoning bylaw, the RM zone does allow for 15 meters in height, which this building is proposed to be 15 meters, correct?
No, I believe it's 20 meters. So it would be the same height as the one on Main Street. That was what was in the most recent updated submission to the municipality.
Oh, because the report I read, it had a list of the zoning bylaw and then what the proposed building was going to be, and it showed 15 meters for height. So
Was that on? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So if that's the case, then we need to know that that's something else that we're considering, is an increase of 5 meters to the zoning bylaw.
So it was noted that it would be 5 stories, and I believe that the math turns out to 20 meters. So we've noted the 5 stories, and that's how it was interpreted with the Main Street development. They maximum would be 20 meters.
Okay, so I'm looking on page 32 of 52 or page 19 of your report. And
right, so that we've had discussions after that submission was in. There was conversations with Matt and then with Andrew about how to articulate the 5 stories so that, because everybody has different interpretation, that would be no higher than 20 meters.
Okay, so we need to include that in the list of amendments to the zoning. And I don't believe it was in there, the height increase.
I think you're correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm not seeing any more hands from the public. Any last comments from members of council? Not seeing anything. So definitely need, I think that this needs to come back somehow to council before we actually have to make a decision at a meeting, so that we're well aware of any changes that have been made. So we'll just leave that comment with staff to figure out how that will happen. So, okay. So thank you, everybody. I think we've obviously heard from the public that wanted to speak. So if there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. But as I said, I think there'll be more information given to council before we're asked to make a decision. So, okay, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Krystin and Evan.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
If there's nothing else, that's the end of our agenda. I will adjourn this meeting at 6:24. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Staff. Good night, everybody.